Hi, my name is Nicole Sharp, and I'm an advocate for domestic violence awareness. I wrote a book, my memoir, The End of November Growing Up with Domestic Violence, and it can be found on Amazon. And here I talk about what it was like growing up with domestic violence. Domestic violence was like an entity that I grew up with. It was alive, unfortunately, and it molded my life and changed my life forever. So you will see as I continue to read my book. And now we're up to chapter 3, My Best Friend Forever. Growing up, seeing the fights, the bruises, hearing the crying and cursing and screaming, there was a need for imagination. With pencil in hand and a blank white paper staring at me, I discovered my best friend forever. My best friend has no gender and cannot be seen by mere eyes. It is felt, and through it, I have gotten through the worst of times. My best friend is writing. I discovered my ability to write fictional stories at the age of 5. I realized that I could travel anywhere and be anything I wanted to be when I put pencil to paper, allowing my imagination to soar. Nature is loud today. This defense mechanism I seem to have developed created a way for me to take a deep breath and let my mind relax from the chaos of family life. It was and still is my best friend. When I feel stressed, I write, and this certainly lessens the anxiety. As a child, when my father would attack my mother, I would slink back into my room, pull out my favorite composition notebook, and just write about being somewhere else. I could literally block out the yelling and screaming as I delved deeper into the story at hand. I remember my first storybook. I scotch taped 10 white ruled index cards with 2 plain blue ones for the front and back cover. The name of the story was The Wolf, the Fox, and the Four Children. I drew the 4 children and their mother on the front cover in pencil. So the story was about a fox and a wolf that tried to hunt down and eat 4 children as they looked for nuts and berries for dinner as their mother had instructed them to. They were poor, and thanks to the forest, these were the delicacies that they could have for free. The children ran for their lives, but then one of them, out of breath and tired of running, stopped and asked, "Why are we running from the wolf and the fox?" The other children stopped too and looked at each other enlightened. Yeah, why are we running from them? From this point, they devised a plan to outsmart the wolf and the fox, and they succeeded to trap them. Along with their nuts and berries, that night they also had wolf soup and fox stew. It was a happy ending. As I look back now, I think the fox and the wolf depicted my father, especially since the father figure is not present in the actual story. I, like one of the kids, got tired of running from him or running from his dysfunction. So I saw the need to outsmart him. I think I outsmarted him in that although I was stuck in the house physically, I wasn't stuck psychologically. My imagination kept reminding me that there existed a better way of life, a free place where I could be happy and not spend my time having to prepare myself for his next outburst. My stories gave me power over my life and made me feel whole. For this reason, I call the ability to write my imagination onto paper and find real comfort in it my oldest and dearest friend, my BFF. Fortunately, this ability to write also benefited me greatly in school. On citywide tests, I always placed in the 90 plus percentile. Once in grade school, I received a 99% score on one of those comprehensive tests. The summary of the test would always have the same short explanation of my grade, able to read the New York Times with understanding. While writing reports and essays were not my cup of tea, they still turned out to be very well written, so much so that my 5th grade teacher accused me of cheating by having an adult write my take home book report. I did not make a fuss. I actually saw this as a compliment. Wow, I thought to myself, she really loves the way I write. Miss Cora made me sit down alone in class that same day while my classmates enjoyed their lunch break in the cafeteria and read a short story, then write a report on it in front of her. When I was done, she took it and dismissed me with a grimace on her face. She never told me how I did, and I never asked her, being the shy, quiet girl that I was. Nothing was ever said about it after that day. I took her unresponsiveness to mean that I did well. I couldn't let my father know about this because he would have marched up to the school and he would have made a big fuss the very next day. Looking back, I should have told him, but back then, I was embarrassed every time he would show up at the school to protest. One day, he noticed that I was doing homework on the theory of evolution. He showed up at the school the next day in the principal's office to make a complaint about having evolution as part of the curriculum. He refused to allow me to be taught that I originated from primates. My child did not originate from monkeys, he said. The end result was that my teacher herself burst into tears in front of us because she also didn't agree with the curriculum and had been fighting with her own conscience to simply do her job. In another incident, a substitute teacher made my class, the honors class of the 6th grade, write for homework 500 times, "I will not make noise on the stairwell." When my father saw my homework, he showed up to the school the next morning to complain about the sub. He said, in part, very firmly to everyone in the principal's office, "I will not allow my daughter to hurt her fingers writing mindless sentences when she could be using her fingers to write something of substance. Is that what this school is teaching her?" And this was just a little bit among many things that my father said. Well, we never had that substitute teacher again. If nothing else, I did respect my father for always checking my homework thoroughly and taking a proactive stance with regard to my education. Sorry about that. To this day, it confounds my mind. How could a man who seemed to love his children so much hate their mother? So now I'll go into chapter 4 because it's pretty short. It's titled My Favorite Auntie. Auntie Abigail was my favorite auntie. She was and still is a tough cookie. But one day, when she came over to our home when I was about 4 or 5 years of age, all of her tough exterior melted like butter on hot coals in a matter of a second. My father was always fascinated with guns. He would buy toy guns for me to play with, and he would collect real guns for himself. Apparently, I watched where he stashed a particular silver-looking gun with a white handle. This is the same gun that I would watch my father threaten my mother with, putting it to her head over and over again, as she pleaded with drenched eyes for him to stop. This made him feel powerful, I guess. How pitiful, but I digress. I must have thought this gun to be intriguing in some way. Maybe it was because it was so shiny. At any rate, Auntie Abigail, who was around 16 at the time, sat down on a little chair of mine, playfully teasing me as she normally would. This time, though, I pushed a chair against my parents' chest of drawers, climbed up to the top drawer, and pulled out my father's shiny silver gun. Auntie Abigail told me that she didn't even see me coming. All she felt was the revolver against her temple, and she froze in time. Her body became cold and stiff, and she couldn't even move her mouth to call my mom for help from the kitchen. She was afraid that any little movement on her part would make me pull the trigger. When my mother finally came into the bedroom, she was completely and utterly mortified. But what kind of scene that must have been? Can you imagine seeing your toddler pointing a gun at your teenage sister's head? A toddler who thought it was just another toy like the ones Daddy would usually buy her. Unknowingly, my father was already teaching me a most horrific lesson. A lesson that could have ended up landing me in jail as a juvenile delinquent later on in life, or probably a career criminal with a rap sheet starting at the age of 5 if I didn't have the proper guidance from my mother, her family, and even most importantly, God. My father was teaching me that if someone made me angry, shoot them. He didn't have to sit me down and give me the rundown of the lesson plan. I simply learned from his example. Children are what I call genius sponges. They suck up everything around them at a remarkable rate, and their memories rival that of computers. Therefore, parents, do not think that your children don't see your patterns. Their heightened awareness allows them to record and imitate your every move and everything that comes out of your mouth. Children observe everything, so please be as good as an example to your children as you can be. And please do not expose them to bad television, social media, or your bad behavior. We all get mad at times, but let's not give our children a front row seat to the horror show. Be that as it may, my mother thought quickly and grabbed the gun from my hand. It was loaded. And so now, next time, we will be reading chapter 5 called The Empath. Thank you.